All right, now we are here for the main event. Okay, now I'm just playing. Get ready to create a custom graduation stole with me. We're starting from scratch, so that means we're going to make this in a rectangle. So go into elements, get your rectangle, and then once you stretch it out, we're going to stretch it to 5.1 by 18.8. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm setting this up for those who don't have a long printer or can't print the long way. So what that means is we're going to break this up into two parts on a 13 by 19 printer. So with that being said, once you duplicate it, now we're going to get our background color and just make it whatever colors you want based on whatever your grad student is using or your customer. But for this one, because we've been keeping it the same thing for Ansley this whole time, we are making it our brown and gold palette color that we've been using. Just trying a few things out right now with the glitter background, but I'm probably going to end up changing that a little bit as you see as we go along. So with that being said, I'm going ahead and adding the brown glitter and the gold glitter. And so now we're pulling in our actual photos that we're going to use. One thing you want to keep in mind when you're doing your grad stoles, you don't want your design to start immediately at the beginning because there is a portion of that that's going to be around their neck that they're not going to see. So you want to make sure that you give yourself some wiggle room before you start actually adding in your photos and starting to create your design. But right now, I'm just pulling in all my elements, my photos that I'm going to be using, changing up my colors, using filters just to make sure it pops on the background, and going from there. And you'll see me play around with layout a couple different times throughout this once I decide what I want to be at the bottom or what I want to be at the top of my design. And I'm just like, again, pulling in all the elements that we've incorporated throughout our bundle design with our That's a Wrap. Yeah, so just making this a cohesive bundle. When you're creating your bundles for your customers, it doesn't have to be the exact same design and image for every single item that you're adding in your packages, but you do want it to flow, you do want it to match up, and you do want it to feel cohesive, even if you're just using the same colors and the same elements. So that gives it a cohesive feel. And I decided to move my seated model on top of the 2026 to kind of give it that feel that she's sitting on the year and just laying it up and getting it right. The thing about stoles, you have to keep in mind the size of your stole and the shape of your stole. It's kind of bigger towards the top, and as it gets towards the end, the shape kind of changes a little bit. So you want to try to keep all of your elements and everything in the center. So that way, when you lay your actual stole on there, the majority of your design will fit within it. However, if some parts are cut off, that's fine. You just want to make sure it doesn't cut off like the face and things like that. Your face should be very visible, and like whatever numbers or whatever you have, it should be visible. And so you'll see what I mean as we go through. So if you notice how I kind of keep my design to my elements in the center, to give myself enough space. And right here, I decided not to go with the dark glitter of the background and to just change it to our gradient background that we've been using throughout our design bundles. And sometimes it is easier when you're trying to keep items together as you're moving it around. If you know you want to keep those things together, go ahead and group them. So that way, if you choose to change the layout, you don't have to move each individual element or image. You can actually move them together, and it makes it easier. So that's what I did with the 2026 in the model. I went ahead and grouped her when I had her where I wanted her to be. And then now I'm just bringing my mascot up some so that it can cover the harsh images of the harshness of the hard edges, excuse me, of the model on the right. Now, yes, I could have used Image Blender, but sometimes in Image Blender kind of it acts up sometimes. So to eliminate the frustration of the app not working, utilize your other elements to kind of hide or change out some of those harsh edges. You don't have to have the harsh edges in your final design. There are some ways that you can play around. Now, this portion here is the top. So again, I broke it up into two pieces because the stole itself is 70 inches, and each piece would have to be a top and a bottom. So you saw me at this piece here, I think I'm putting it as the bottom, and this piece, the other piece, I'm putting it as the top. And so now I have to create the top design. So this goes back to what I was talking about, and make sure that you leave some pieces at the top that goes around the neck piece, because that's good, especially if it's a girl and she has her hair down, nobody's gonna see that part. So I decided to put these photos on the left side instead of on the right, and I'm still just playing with layout just to kind of get it where I want to. And so you'll see me eventually stretch them out even more, and some of the arms may be cut off, but that's fine because I want to make sure the face is good and visible. Again, remember, we have to keep that piece in the center, or keep everything in the center, because you want to make sure that you have enough. Now I want to go ahead and put her name on here. I want to make it visible. We had 2026. Now I want to go ahead and add her name. And I'm just going to go ahead and keep it in the same font we've been using for her, especially on the t-shirt design. And that was that, I believe it was Gladiola. And so I'm going to change that font to Gladiola so that we keep it consistent. And basically, I put a good border on it so it's visible, because you want it to be visible, so people can see what it is that, they know what they're looking at. So yeah, I play with it a little bit. I decided to move the diploma to the number and take it from the top, because I think I had added it there as well, just as a placeholder. But I just want to make sure that it flows. And so now I want to start bringing in some more of the elements of the lights, camera, action. I want to bring in more elements now to kind of make that feel the same and make it feel cohesive. So now what we're doing is just looking for some of the reels and the light, camera, action pieces to kind of make it all flow together. So when you look at the bundle, or when the customer looks at the bundle, they can say, okay, I see where this is going. This is lights, camera, action. This is spotlight, senior spotlight, and it's all starting to make sense because I see that that's a wrap. I see lights, camera, action. I see the camera reel, and different things like that. All right, so remember how I told you how you have to be mindful of the top piece? So with that being said, that doesn't mean leave it blank. You can if you want to, but you can still just put something there to where it doesn't look plain. And so that's a good time to take something. It may either lower the transparency on it or just make it kind of still have the feel of what your design theme is. And so that's why I put that cinematic reel there. And then I'm just gonna adjust the placement of the model so they don't bleed into that. And so you'll see me now adjust them, and then I'll cut off some of the edge of the arms. And that's only so that my printer doesn't use up all the extra ink. If it doesn't need to, then you don't have to use up the extra ink. And so now I decided to go ahead and add the cinema ticket on there because I did have that on the t-shirt design. So I wanted to incorporate that here. With on your stoves, this is really where you can have fun and just really kind of make it yours. Put if you have a theme, if the customer has a theme, put it all together and kind of just have fun with that stove. Some schools allow the students to wear it and some schools don't. But for the schools that don't allow the students to wear it, this is a keepsake memorabilia that they can wear to the graduation party, that they can wear, later on when they're being recognized. But if they're not able to wear it in the actual ceremony, that's fine. You don't have to make it plain. And so now I'm just basically adding another cinematic element to it to just kind of help with that neck piece because, of course, this all will fall around the neck piece. And then the next thing that I'm going to want to do is add some lights to just kind of give it that extra lights, camera action. Let's give it a little pop with the lights so that it's not plain. Even though we have the gradient, I still wanted to add something to it. So now I'm adding this and I'm going to basically layer this behind the images, but right before the gradient background. So you'll see me layer that and make sure it's there so that it can still be pop. It can be visible, but it can still pop. And that looks good. And so I decided to do the same to the bottom piece. And here is where I'm getting rid of the excess so that, like I said, it doesn't take up all my ink. Now, that real piece, it was a different format. So that little bit, I'm fine with it, printing that. And just doing the same thing to the bottom part. I still want to add a few other light elements to it to give it that sparkle. although it says 2026, I do want to put class of 2026. So I kept the same font. I just made it smaller. And I put it on top of the 2026 like I did on the other design, but then I decided to actually place it below the 2026 just to give it its own little identity for this design. And one other thing I want to fix, because we are going to pretty much tape these together, the top and the bottom, as we press our stole, I don't want it to be, you want to make sure that it flows from the top to the bottom. So when you press it together, it should be seamless, or it should appear to be seamless. So if you notice the top one where the girl's legs are, how it cuts off and then it immediately goes into a light area and the lights, camera, action on the second piece. So what I decided to do was to adjust these a little bit so that I could put a layer, or actually more so like a filter kind of, to make it seamless when I put those two together, because I did not want it to look like, whoa, she pieced those together when I press it. So you don't have to do this, and you really could just leave it blank like how I have it right there. But of course you don't want to have the legs harsh cut like that. But I'm just looking now for like a gold splatter or gold blur that I can use to just connect the top and the bottom together. And I decided on that one. So basically now I'm just gonna line it up, put it on the top and the bottom, so that once I piece my two pieces together, once I tape it down and tile it together, technically is the term, but once I tile it down, it basically will line up seamless. Now on the right side, I'm not really worried about that. The gold glitter piece, I'm not really worried about that, because that's perfectly fine to me. But that gradient piece, it was so light. I wanted to make sure that it flowed right. There we go. So yeah, so now when I tape these two together, it should be a seamless tile once I put them together and get ready to press my stove. So basically that's it. I'm just lining everything up, getting everything finalized. And just like that, we have our stole design. So we have all of our images designed now.